Okay, it is 9 o'clock, so. Thank you.
Would you still please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. All right, this is the time when we have public comments. I don't know that I see anybody in the room that might have a public comment, so we'll move on to the agenda review and adoption. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, wow.
I got a motion by Anderson and a second by Lynch to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Approval, I think Commissioner Fahey moves to approve the September 23rd, 2025 minutes, and I got a second by Uterman, is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, any discussion on that matter? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Community announcements. Let's start with Commissioner Anderson.
All right. Thank you, Chair Workman. So since we've been together, I had an opportunity to visit our Veteran Services Officer. I'm a mother of a veteran, and we have Veterans Day coming up. So I just wanted to learn a little bit more about that offering, and it was a great opportunity to learn about how our county serves our veterans in getting them the benefits they need. So if you are a veteran, find your way to us, and Steve and his team will help you. I also was able to attend the sheriff's open house on Saturday. I got to the tail end of that, but had an opportunity to see the horses and kind of take in the emergency services piece. And I'm just super grateful of our sheriff's department and all of our law enforcement for what you do to keep our community safe. I think this is an area where people have no idea what happens behind the scenes and all the work that's done. So I just wanted to make a shout out to that group. I also wanted to mention that one of the managers of the Lower Minnesota Watershed District, the Carver County appointee, has resigned. And so I just wanted to thank Lauren Salvato for her service on the Lower Minnesota Watershed District and let people know we have an opening. And I'm working with Krista on putting that online and letting people know. But if you are interested in serving on that, let me know and we'll have a chat. And it's been 9 months. I've been doing this 9 months. I know that because I had to reset my password again. For all employees, doing it in the building is easier and better. So I always like to think about what I've learned and during this period of time. And I think the big thing these last 3 months with kind of getting more involved with legislative session and what's happening, I'm glad that Mike is here today, is what we have control over and what we don't have control over. I think a lot of people think because we're elected officials, we have a lot more power and control than we really do. And we don't always have control over the laws that are made and who's serving at higher levels of government, but we do have control and influence over what happens in our community. And so that's what I've learned in my focus, and I look forward to hearing more from you. That's all I have.
Well, thank you very much. Commissioner Urban?
Yeah, thank you. I also had a chance to attend that sheriff's open house. It was fantastic. Brought my 6 and 10-year-old with. You can imagine how eye-opening it was for them to take advantage of the jail tour. The jail's been standing for about 30 years, and man, the myth busts that happened. It's not everything that you see in the media, and that was said by one of our tour guides. It's one of the cleanest jails in the area. It's 30 years old. We don't have any intention to build anything different or new, and I think a lot of that's tribute to Rita Ashpool. Ben will take the torch and lead it as well. But the investment made, and this, Lisa talks about the things that she's learned. These are some of the things that we've done. We've invested in that in some of our assets. It is one of our priorities, at least for the sheriff's office. The jail looks great, and the tour was made available to people. We know we're in the midst of 2026 election focus. We're starting to see things heat up a little bit politically, but for these people to make themselves available and show, and some of the things that there's a level of contentiousness. Doesn't need to be. We can have some conversations about it. The dive squad was there too, so we got to see somebody in the water using the dive squad equipment. And the guys were lamenting about how much money they get or don't get for their equipment, and they were paralleling that to the fire department. So anyway, continue to support these folks. Lunch and Learn, AMC put on a concrete ideas for solid economic development yesterday. Mark Jeffers led that conversation with Aiken County. They do a great job. Kate doing with AMC Economic Development, Workforce, and Housing. Housing is on a lot of people's minds. It's not just the conversation, it's the greatest impact of what we can do in our seats, which leads me to a number of us had an opportunity to be at the opening, and I'll leave it probably to Commissioner Fahey, but another ribbon cutting within the CDA. I think we're in record times. They've introduced more incremental units through the CDA in the last 3 years than probably ever in the history of Carver County. So a lot of momentum, and it was fun to see a lot of people out there celebrating a lot of the struggles and challenges and results that were delivered. On the topic of what we've learned, but also what we've done, the county puts out a mid-year review twice a year. So that came out a couple months ago. I'm going to post that shortly. There's just exceptional things, and some of the things that have been added to that list since that list came out. The 4110 opened up. I know Commissioner Anderson, myself, had a chance to do it. Probably missed that one. But they did something called the first drive, which I've never done. It's kind of the equivalent of a ribbon cutting. But we jumped in a bus and we navigated the roundabout for the first official time, I think it was. And I know that it impacts Commissioner Anderson and myself's districts probably more than anybody. 3 schools right there on the entry had extended interruptions, and to see that thing open was fantastic. We talk a lot about deaths. We talk about gun deaths and other deaths. I think one of the things that we can do within our roles is reduce any of the traffic deaths, and roundabouts certainly do that. I think we have 9 active projects right now, roundabouts being built across the county. Bavaria 82nd also opened up for those that are tuning in. And then on the theme of, not just what we've learned, but what we've done, a lot of conversations happening about Highway 5 by the Arboretum from 41 West all the way downtown and beyond. One of the things I'm most proud of is when we first started that project, it was supposed to be a 28-month full closure. And through the partnership that we heard from Bolton and Mink the last time we were in the boardroom and others, we've whittled that down to 6 months. And of course, it's going to be a painful 6 months for businesses and residents and people getting to and from school. But some of the conversations are: can we limit? Can we shrink that? Because if we stage it, we're going to have a lot of our equipment there, and can we save money? So, essentially, from the 28-month conversation, full closure, to 6 months, we've also saved about $12 million. And then some of us had a chance to see CAP agency. Commissioner Anderson is our representative for that. They also opened and had a tour available. It's been long for them to have an official presence here. They now have a presence here for more services for our team. On a more fun note, I guess, on some of these things, Monarch is open as well. It's a single track bike track. It's just another amenity that we have in Carver County that people are coming to find. We're not braggadocious about it, but there's a lot of people on mountain bikes, and I know our county attorney and others get on a bike once in a while. There was $12,000, $15,000, $18,000 bikes at Monarch. There's a lot of money that's coming to Carver County and finding these trails, and I think they're finding ways to enjoy our restaurants and other things as well. Early voting's happening for the referendum. I wanted to throw that out there. I did have a chance to attend the referendum meeting. It's Chanhassen High School last week. It's interesting when you're proactive in your communication, there's not as much uproar. And I think the district did a nice job of communicating to us as leaders and to the community. There was, I think, 6 people that were non-staff that were at that meeting. And I think in years past, it would have been full or a lot of people. I think they're doing a nice job of communicating, whether you want to vote for it or you don't. Same thing with the public safety conversation. I think there was 20 non-residents or non-staff that were in that room. And so proactively, and our team does the same thing, communicating to our residents. Had a chance to jump in the truck with Greg Pavitt and do some meal deliveries. He does a great organization called Not Better Society. What is it? Help me out.
Humanity Alliance.
Humanity Alliance. Yep. And so a couple times I try and get in the car to do it just to see from the front lines, who are the people being served in our community. And I'm thankful and grateful that most of the people in our community are well taken care of. And they're able to afford their own meals, but there's some people that live in the shadows. And our team's doing a phenomenal job of serving those folks, oftentimes quietly, and also through the form of the FRC, which we'll hear a little bit more about in the coming weeks, but Family Resource Center. We're the middle to the front of the pack and leading in that regard to serve the people that are living on little. A couple more things and I'll be done. Another fun note, had a chance to go to the University of Minnesota softball game. One of our own, Sydney Schwartz, was first baseman. She came out of Victoria. Fantastic player. And I know that Commissioner Lynch likes to talk about his wrestling guys. I'm going to probably cover the softball folks over the next couple of years, but Sydney was performing at a very high level. It's great. Legislative priorities upon us too. We're having conversation with all our lawmakers. So if you have any inputs, as those listening, staff or residents, as to what we think we should focus on. We are focused on a policy year this year, not a money year, but a policy year. We have the luxury of having Commissioner Workman 10 years at the legislature, so he understands that. And then me, just a little grasshopper trying to learn. But there's a lot of important things in a priority year, policy year. And then finally, congratulations and a special note to Deb Barber. She's been our representative on the Met Council. The president or the chair of the Met Council has retired, and she is now serving in the interim chair of the Met Council. And so I think it's super important. We've got a great relationship with Deb as our local rep. Maybe this is an opportunity to press a little bit harder as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fahey.
Thank you, Chair Workman. Yes, we had the ribbon cutting last Thursday, October 2nd for Chaska Yards, which consists of the renovation of the historic Ernst House and 3 new homes with a shared 4-stall garage. These 4 single-family homes are additions to the Carver County Community Land Trust, and they're available for purchase for the eligible households. Great turnout. Commissioner Workman was there, and Commissioner Uterman, and also Commissioner Anderson attended on the tail end, but just a great event, and to see that take place in downtown Chaska. Very fortunate. Just some other community announcements. The Young America Lions, we have our breakfast this Sunday from 8 to 12 at the Pavilion in NYA. I'll be there. We're making omelets to order, blueberry pancakes and all the fixings. And then also Oktoberfest in New Germany next weekend, the 17th, 18th, camping, food, beer, and music. So if you need an additional fix of German culture, come on out to New Germany. And then various fall festivals are in full swing. Screamtown, the weather's just been fantastic, so get out and enjoy. And then just a real quick update on Highway 212. Multiple lane changes now are taking place, so the progress continues. And as always, just encouraging people to slow down. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to talk about construction projects. As we talked about, the roundabout at Waconia Parkway and Highway 10 is now open. They're wonderful when they're open. We have to go through, I always tell constituents, we have to go through a little pain to get long-term gain. They don't buy it, but it's what we do. The Dakota Rail, I heard about the biking. If you want to have a Dakota Rail and the Highway 10, there's now a parking lot there. So you can swing in, park your vehicle, and take a bike ride, walk, do whatever you'd like. People were parking along the road for quite a while, so that's a major improvement. The football, if you guys want to go out and get a football fix, we have a lot of great football right here in right here in Carver County. The Waconia team is doing very, very well. I believe they're 4-1. Mayor Luthen's doing very, very well again. Watertown Mayor is doing very, very well too. They're competitive. If you want to see soccer, go and see the Watertown Mayor girls soccer team. They're putting up scores that sound like football scores. And they're undefeated and ranked number 1 in state. They have several Division I players there, and they're pretty phenomenal to watch. Anyway, and then sadly, Isabella Oscarson, she was a firefighter for the Idaho Department of Lands, lost her life. So she is 26 years old, great kid from Watertown Mayor, graduate, and great kid. So deepest sympathies to the Oscarson family.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynch. I don't have a whole lot. I will work off of what Commissioner Anderson said about what can we do and what can't we do. Well, I'm here to tell you, State Highway 41, 212, Highway 5, these are not Carver County roads. But thanks to the initiative of this county board and previous county boards, we are getting those things completed because our good friends at MnDOT don't have the wherewithal to help us out with that. They are helping us out, but not take the lead. As I've always said, Highway 5, which will be not only closed for 6 months, and I'm holding Commissioner Uterman to that, was not even in MnDOT's 20-year plan. And so Carver County has stepped up with our Arboretum area plan, and we are getting all of that done. And it is painful, 41 intersection and 5 next year near me. I didn't chuckle at 41 and 10, but it didn't affect me. It does affect Uterman and Anderson. I could just go another way, but for a lot of people down there, all those roundabouts and the construction were incredible. I think there's an official ribbon cutting on that on the 28th, correct? And I will be there. Chanhassen did defeat Chaska. I wasn't able to make the game, 28-14. I was hoping for a tie for a couple of my favorite football teams. Beautiful night, warm night. So Chanhassen keeps the jug for the 4th year in a row. I know I noticed Chaska is at Waconia Friday night. Might be a good one to check out. You pretty much don't have to leave Carver County to experience just about anything you want in this world. I would say, and you can do it safely and economically. So I think that's about it from me. All right, we're going to move into the consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second, Mr. Chair.
I got a motion by Anderson and a second by Lynch for the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on that?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Uterman.
just a couple comments. 2.6, I'm concerned that there's a reported 3,500 homes coming in the next 3 to 5 years right on that corridor, pushing just west of existing Carver. And I'm concerned that that's going to limit our sewer and water capacity in the future. And I'm excited that with partnership with Met Council, that we may be able to have conversations with the 2050 comp planning. But my understanding is that we are near capacity when it comes to the eastern side of our water and sewer capacity. We have 7 different projects across the state or the county that need additional capacity. And if we trade capacity for homes versus industrial commercial opportunities, it may have a significant impact when it comes to budgeting for the county. And what I mean by that is 20 years ago or so, maybe when you were there, Tom, I don't know, but the state commissioned a study and found out that the average house that was under the value of $450,000 did not cover its associated services. If you fast forward that now, that average house is about $700,000. And so if you're not building a house of $700,000 or more, loosely or roughly, you're not covering the taxes associated with it or the services, whether it's road, whether it's law enforcement, et cetera. And so the concern for me is a lot of these houses are $650,000. And so you talk about cost shifts. We normally hear about cost shifts from the state and the federal government, but if you think about the decisions that are being made in the cities, there could be a significant cost shift if this were to happen back to the county in the form of services, particularly that law enforcement and HHS have to cover. So I just raised the concern. I don't think that there's ways that we can grow out of it by attracting industrial and commercial base. But I just wanted to make that statement. So if we're going to engage in the transportation study to accommodate 3,500 homes, it does come at a cost to us. The other comment I wanted to make is on 211. I fully support the shift that we've been talking about for a while and applaud the team for doing so. We know that it's a challenging budget time, not only now, but particularly in 27 and 28. So the shift from deputy director to talent acquisition supervisor not only saves us money, but I think it gets our resources where they need to be in preparation for what we're facing in the next couple of years. So I didn't want that to just pass through on a consent. I just wanted to recognize Carrie and her team for making that, and I'm sure it'll come with some form of a pain to do so, but I think it's the right thing to do and fully support it. So thank you.
Very good. Okay, I have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Our regular session contains exactly one item, and that is the MICA legislative update. And let's see, MICA, Minnesota Inter-County Association, used to be the Metro, right?
Mr. Chair, yeah, I mean, I think when the organization was founded in the early 70s, it used to be metropolitan, but we're 17 counties, both metro and statewide right now. So Minnesota Inter-County Association. So I'll just start off, and if you've got questions along the way, feel free to interrupt me or a member of the team. We'll have different people come up, but just feel free to say, hey, hold on, I want to talk about that a little more. Happy to field them as we go. First, as mentioned, we're a voluntary organization, 17 essentially the most populous counties in Minnesota outside of Hennepin and Ramsey. And our focus is the statewide issues that affect our membership broadly rather than county-specific issues like an individual capital investment project or something like that. We'll have the team kind of introduce themselves as they come up. So during session, we're at the Capitol every day. During interim, we're meeting with county staff and also different legislative task forces and things of that nature. But at the Capitol, we're in committee every day talking to legislators about county priorities, making sure bills are moving or trying to make sure some bills don't move. But we're really, and we were talking about this a little bit before the meeting started, we're at our most effective when we're relating kind of personal county-specific stories to delegations and trying to show, like, here's, for example, what this statewide policy you're talking about might mean in Carver County and the practical effects of it. And then also trying to connect you, and when those messages are coming from county commissioners, as they did, on a lot of cost shifts issues this year at the Capitol, that's really when that message can be really powerful. So we do provide weekly written updates from the Capitol. We provide an end of session report on what did and didn't happen. We have an annual legislative forum. This year it's going to be in Sherburne County in probably January. And then we also have these monthly board meetings. Our board is made up of county commissioners. We have monthly administrator meetings and also the monthly policy meetings with different county staff, whether they're engineers, public health, human services, finance directors, those types of meetings where we're really acting as a convener, and we provide a lot of value that way, where your staff can figure out, okay, what's going on in Anoka County? How are you dealing with this problem? Would that work here? And just trying to, it's also a good way of figuring out issues before they bubble up. Another thing we really try to do is provide an analytical lens to our work. I've worked in tax area for a number of times, so whether it's property tax comparisons, levy data, or economic forecast breakdowns, that's something that we really want to be able to provide to you. So speaking of talking about taxes, I did want to kind of provide a picture of what things look like in Carver County compared to the other collar counties and the state as a whole, and Hennepin and Ramsey County. So what this is basically, this is your net tax capacity share. So it's essentially what you're taxing with your levy, where those levy dollars are coming from. This isn't, and this is what I can say, what you can see here is that Carver County, obviously more similar to the other collar counties, but even more residential heavy if you're looking at the tax capacity.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Commissioner Uterman.
clearly we're heavy on bedroom community type living. And as we talked before the meeting, 3 of the fastest growing 25 cities in the state are in Carver County. If you combine their tax base, less than 2% of it's non-residential. So it shows it here. That green line will get bigger and bigger in the next 10, 15 years if we don't do something intentional. Do you have access to quick data to show our tax rate per year for the next 5 years on residential versus non-residential? Because my understanding is that we were low and now we're climbing a bit. And then against our peers, it's really not it's not fair to compare to the out counties.
Yeah, if you're talking about, are you talking about the last 5 years or the next 5 years?
Both would be great.
Well, I mean,
Well,
with
you
the
can
last,
look in the future.
the
But
last 5 years, I think I can handle that. The next 5 years, it would just involve a lot of assumptions, frankly. You know, it'd be a little bit more difficult. I mean, if you want to say, if you were to assume this, then I can put something together. But I mean, can certainly look at that for the last 5 years. And if you're like, hey, what I want to know is what these other 5 counties look like and how it compares to them. That's something certainly I can do. But if you just, I mean, we should just trade emails
Sounds good.
and then
Yep.
I can provide that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
Might
easier
take
to
a
get it
minute,
direct than
but-
ask our staff. Thank you.
Yep. Yes.
Yes. Could you define what are the collar counties?
Oh, so the collar counties are Anoka, Dakota, Carver, Scott, and Washington.
So the other 5 counties other than, so when
Yeah.
you talk about the 7 counties, those are the other
Yep.
4.
Yep. It's basically the 7-county metro minus Hennepin and Ramsey.
Thank you.
Yep. And like in case you're, so these are kind of combinations of classes. Residential is both homestead and non-homestead. Ag land is homestead, house, garage, and 1 acre. Non-homestead, commercial, industrial, both commercial and industrial.
Thank you.
So, and thank you. You know, we all sort of have the history, and we appreciate the more finer details of that history. As the probably least patient of anybody up on this board, we want to know what you think about the future. Like, who's going to get elected governor?
Yeah,
What's
could
the
you tell us
deficit
that?
going to be? What's these are the things we really, and they're the hardest. So, but so that's why we kind of pop out and want to get ahead of ourselves a little bit. And it doesn't always work really well, but you can make stuff up if you want. So
Okay. Well,
we'd appreciate that. So.
I appreciate that note. I did want to talk a little bit about the assessment year 2025 and how these values change in Carver County. One note is that this is what's called a constant class estimated market value change. So it does not factor in new construction and it does not factor in classification changes. So if a property changes from commercial to apartment, that value changes and can be reflected here. It's really just to show you like what a typical building in Carver from assessment year 2024 to assessment year 2025. If you were to factor in new construction or classification changes, Carver would be way higher on apartment value. The apartment value growth would be over 10%. What I would say in the metro, obviously you can see when you look at the Collier County data or Hennepin Ramsey in particular, apartment value pretty strongly negative growth for assessment year 2025. I think there's a little bit of a market value correction there. There was really robust apartment value growth from like 2019 to 2024. We saw Hennepin Ramsey the last couple of years go a little bit more negative. There's a number of factors going into that. And the Collier County's kind of a little bit of a lagging indicator. But if you were to include new construction, Carver would be above 10% growth. But otherwise, no numbers really like jump off the page here as especially alarming. They're relatively typical. So next, I just kind of wanted to show what the history of that net tax capacity share from the earlier slide would look like if you look at the last 5 years, 10, 15, 20 years ago. There's not huge drastic changes. There are some patterns here. What I would say is, you know, that first slide was kind of a snapshot of a moment in time. This gives you the historical perspective. There's a few things like sometimes these are the big changes here are factors really far outside your control. Like between 2005 and 2010, you see a dip and the share that residential is contributing to your overall tax levy. Well, what happened between 2005 and 2010? The housing crisis, right? In 2023, Some of you all may recall there was a really big spike in residential value statewide. It was 17.5%. In Carver County, it was 23.5%. So even higher. That growth is baked in. It was a little bit more of a one-time system shock than, we haven't seen 20% growth every year. Obviously, that would create a number of problems. So the share that of residential that Carver's contributing, that residential is contributing to Carver's levy is a little bit lower than it was in 2023, just after that one-time system shock, but it's still higher than it has been historically. The other thing I would just note, apartment value, really small. In 2005, it was 232 million, in 2005 is 164 million in Carver, 2015, 232 million, 2025, 809 million. So that's really significant growth. Of course, it's still a really small share. For reference, residential value 17.7 billion in Carver in 2025. So, but it is a significant growth over the long term. So I wanted to talk a little bit about county program aid, and we'll have Nancy's going to in particular talk about some of the cost shifts that were considered at the Capitol in 2025. Obviously, a lot of different areas at the Capitol were facing cuts, and taxes was no exception. There was a $20 million proposed cut to county program aid from the Senate this year that did not become law. There was the repeal of the local government cannabis aid, which was basically saying we'll give cities and counties a share of the gross receipts tax generated from cannabis. That got repealed before it really even went into effect effectively. But I think Carver is really interesting when it comes to talking about county program aid, and that's because you can see, there's a little bit of a spike in 2026. Obviously, there was a big spike in 2024. Well, that was because the legislature increased county program aid by 80 million. This year, that spike is with a flat appropriation. There's no change in the CPA appropriation. The increase is nearly $800,000 for Carver County. So what's going into that? That's the first part of this question, right? There's the need side of the formula, which is based on the share of your population that's 65 or older, the share of your population that's receiving SNAP benefits, and the share of serious crimes that are committed in the jurisdiction. Carver is aging at a slightly higher rate than the whole state. The 65 plus share is going up for everybody, essentially. It's going up a little bit faster for Carver than everybody else. And Carver's got a significant growth, though still over a low base, when it comes to number of households receiving SNAP. It was over 15% from 21 to 23, which is one of the higher growth rates in the state. But really, that is only about $120,000 of the increased aid is from those changes. Most of that is from the tax base equalization aid. So about $680K of that growth, which is really, again, probably about 65 to 70 counties are seeing their CPA decrease in 2026. So this is unique. Most of the growth is from the tax base equalization aid because tax base growth in Carver, comparing 2022 to 2023, wasn't as high as the rest of the state. So I think a really natural question would be, well, it's going up a bunch this year. Well, what about next year, right? I mean, and I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen next year, but I can tell you that, that 27 number, barring any law changes, the tax base equalization aid for Carver in 2026 is $4 million. It literally cannot fall below 3.8 million in 2027 because the formula says you've got to retain at least 95% of your tax base equalization aid. So I don't know whether your aid's going to go up or down the following year, but it's not. If it does go down, it's not going to go down by as much as it went up. Basically, that's what I can't tell you for sure.
If I take what you said and just bring it to my level, the underlying factors that are driving this number higher are not favorable for us. So the more money we get, the less favorable the underlying factors are. Is that accurate?
That's 100% accurate, right? Like, it's great that you're getting more in aid because of this tax-based equalization aid, right? But Carver still receives below average CPA, as I've got up there, compared to the rest of the state. But your tax-based growth isn't as high as the rest of the state for the most recent year of the formula. Like, that's not good, right? But there is this positive component to it, at least, I guess is what I can say.
Well,
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
and so let's go back to the Uterman premise on residential is a drag, commercial is not. And I'm not sure that these graphs bear that out. Commercial property is having a lot of trouble, certainly inside of the collar counties. My daughter's international company, the company she works for, it's not her company, is moving over to wherever Cargill has their offices in Hopkins from the Normandale Towers. And that Normandale Tower just sold for 94% of it less than its value. I mean, is that where Carver County, maybe that's not a discussion for Micah, but maybe for a meeting later with people who know some of the, how this is all affect. Commissioner Uterman is, I was a very young city council member and I was scratching my head about this formula. Nonprofits, untaxed properties, churches, commercial, residential, ag, what's the magic number? Presumably if this board said, hey, we're not going to let any city build another house, a residential property in Carver County, we're going to move only to commercial property, and then that'll fix our levy. Our levy will be full because commercial is going to be more valuable, et cetera. And I'm not sure that math adds up. And so, or it can for a while. Like I said, look what's going on in Bloomington, what's going on in downtown Minneapolis. So I guess I'm just bringing that up because Commissioner Uterman, that's been something on my mind for 30 years is what do we do? And how do we do it? Couldn't we do it better and just say we're not going to have any more houses built because they cost us money. And then we're just going to build commercial properties all over Carver County. That doesn't necessarily mean it's true, I'm assuming. So, but the commercial is such a small part of it. If 75% of our taxable is residential, correct?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm not sure I came to a specific point there, but it's not something that's brand new. It's been something. I mean, again, city of St. Paul has a big problem because nonprofits, the Catholic Church, has so many properties that aren't taxed that it creates a unique situation for them and probably Ramsey County because they can't tax the cathedral, and so. So it's been something. Nobody ever seems to do anything about it. But I think these graphs bear it out that this has sort of been going on for decades, and it doesn't seem the math changes. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may, because yes, I do believe a healthy tax mix is the answer. And I do think that if we look out, there's predictive modeling, we can use AI or other things. I think we're getting to a place where we look out further in our future when it comes to budgeting, not only our own things, but in the future as well. But easy math is that commercial and industrial properties over time pay more in tax pound for pound and use less services. So if we materially alter the mix and our residential mix goes up, as it looks like in the next 20 years will happen through the growth of Victoria, Carver, and Waconia, which would largely be bedrooms. How shift that we'll experience in the next 20 years won't be what we saw in the past because Chaska and Chanhassen have largely driven that tax mix, which has been 20% or so of industrial and commercial. If we look out the next 20 years where the growth is going to come from, if it's all coming from bedrooms, we as a county will have a budget conundrum that we should just talk about today versus 20 years out. And I'd be fully in support of doing an aggressive modeling of what the future looks like. We can use your crystal ball or mine or other technology that's out there. But to ignore it is to say in 20 years, whoever's going to follow us up here will have to deal with it. And if there's a material shift, like 3,500 bedrooms, 3 people per house, that's 10,000 more in population. That's creeping up into double-digit change of our overall population. That's material. And we know it's coming. We know where the trends are coming. And what can we do to change it or alter it or to keep it at a similar mix than what we're at right now? Simply, we can zone for it. We can spot zone all the way up down 212 for commercial, industrial, some residential. We can control that, or we can have it happen to us. And largely we say, let's just punt to the cities. That's what the cities do. That's what the cities do. We have the jurisdiction for 85% of 212 from Carver all the way out to the edge of the county. That's within the county's jurisdiction. And if we simply zone for it, we can unlock farmers that are getting paid, I don't know, $8,000 to $10,000 an acre. If they put in a little bit of water, a little bit of sewer, a little bit of investment, in the not so distant future, that land could be worth $90,000 to $100,000 a year. And these are the same farmers that are saying 20 years ago, my next generation is going to farm, and they're going to take over the farm. Now they're saying the next generation isn't going to take over, and if they do, it's not going to be a full-time living. And so we have solutions if we want to face the problem. And the problem isn't today, it's in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I think the answer is we need a healthy tax mix. We know what's coming in these big cities where their growth is trending, and we know commercial and industrial carries more of the tax load, takes it away from the residential, make it more affordable for young families. That your data will also show that as our 65 plus grows faster than anywhere else in the state, our 18 less is shrinking, which is even more concerning over 20 years. Not today, but it'll impact the enrollment in our schools, it'll impact the vitality and the health of our community, it'll attack our workforce. And so we can look at it at a myopic 1-year view, or we can look at it in a 20-year view. So I think we're saying the same thing. It just hasn't presented itself because Chaska and Carver were on, or Chaska and Chanhassen were in build-out mode, and now they're pretty much built out. So,
Well, I'll make one final comment, and then we can get back to Micah. But, you know, the fact of the matter is we know the trending from the core of the metro to the first ring to the second ring. I knew farmers in Edina that made a lot of money to develop, and they brought their money out to Carver County. Now, I think it's the Thrivent building, sold 4 or 5 years ago for $240 million, and now just sold for $6.5 million in downtown. That's not a good trend. My kids are thinking about selling their house in South Minneapolis. I said, sell it and buy an office tower. I'll take 3 of the top floors because it's cheaper than a house. So we know the trending. We know the farmers are patient as you roll the carpet out. And I just don't think that there's a magic that we're gonna do something different. Of course, you need the Met Council participation. Pipe isn't cheap, free, or other, and to go down to 12 and develop that out, and it's all going to be done. Those markets are like this also. So anyway, you're listening to our debate. We appreciate it. And at some point, if you just say, Workman, you're right all the time, I think we. So,
I don't know if I have that in my notes here.
Good, but it's that debate, and I enjoy it, obviously, and because Commissioner Uterman may be the least patient, which is a good thing. We like his impatience on here. And how do we do something a little bit better than we are a county without problems, a lot of problems compared to 86 other counties. So, but still, how do we do it better? And we make it better and do it differently if we have to. And because why just put up with the same stuff? And so back to you with the legislature and how they're going to help us.
Yeah, on that ominous note, I'm going to turn it over to Amber to go over transportation.
Great. Good morning, Mr. Chair and fellow commissioners. My name is Amber Backus, and this was my first year representing Micah at the Capitol on transportation issues. It was a pleasure to do so. I also want to give kudos for your great staff. Lyndon Robjent has been a tremendous resource to me during the session, and I really appreciate all the time you give him to help us lobby legislators as well as be involved in MnDOT's Technical Advisory Committee on the Greenhouse Gas Mitigation and Assessment. So really a tremendous resource. So just wanted to give an update on some things that have happened since session. If you recall, it was a tough year for transportation with the pending $6 billion deficit in the out years. The Transportation Committee had a big general fund cut to have to reach when you consider that it receives very little general fund money. Over the next 4 years, the committee had to cut $248 million from its general fund dollars, and that's over a third of what it receives from the general fund. This, of course, impacted transit as well as roads and bridges, as this legislature chose to slow down the dedication of the sales tax on motor vehicle parts to the trunk highway fund. So that results in a cut to the county state aid roads of $8 million in the out biennium. But there were a few bright spots in terms of new funding that I just wanted to touch base on. We were successful in getting new dollars into the local government road wetland replacement program. That's a program that is administered by the Board of Water and Soil Resources, so that when you are reconstructing a county road, the Bowser, the Board of Water and Soil Resources, is responsible for mitigating any impacts on wetlands and saving you the cost of doing so. That program has been chronically underfunded, but this year we were able to secure $8 million in new funding for the program, $3 million from the general fund, which was a pretty big success considering this money came from the Transportation Committee, which typically doesn't fund Bowser, usually the Environment Committee does. So that $3 million in cash is going to allow the agency to purchase credits on the private market to help overcome the deficit in credits. And then there was the $5 million in the bonding bill also allocated for this program, which will allow the states to build some new wetland projects, which will generate many more credits to help keep that program solvent, so your roads can be built without delays in the permitting process when dealing with wetlands. The bonding bill also was great for transportation and local governments in particular, in the fact that there was considerable new funding for the local road improvement program, as well as the local bridge rehabilitation program. For the local road improvement program, there was $42 million allocated, which you as counties can use to help pay for the local share of trunk highway projects or improve routes of regional significance. And because of that funding, MnDOT started taking applications for eligible projects as of September 16th. And if you have something in the works, I'm sure Lyndon probably does, you can make those applications through December 12th. But counties are eligible for 35% of those funds. Metro counties, including Carver, 25%, and the maximum grant received is $1.5 million. So hopefully you will be able to take advantage of that to help offset some of your transportation costs. Looking forward, we're really going to look at 2026 as a year to sort of reset and reframe the narrative. Something else we faced in 2025 was a lot of anti-road and anti-county sentiment. This came from transit and environmental advocates, and some of this rhetoric was bought into by some of the key Democrats on the transportation committees. And they really were going after metro counties in particular. There's a narrative that metro counties aren't doing what they're supposed to do in terms of spending the transportation advancement account dollars that were enacted in 2023. Those dollars are supposed to be used for road reconstruction as well as active transportation and transit. There's a lot of misinformation that metro counties aren't doing that. And that sentiment led to the push to try to take your metro sales tax dollars during the special session. So we really want to spend 2026 just level setting and reframing the narrative to talk about what counties are doing, especially metro counties, that they are spending these dollars the way they're supposed to be doing. And also just talk about the fact that you have to have a good road system to deal with transit and to have places for people to ride their bikes and to walk. So all of that is going to be part of our initiative going forward. Micah will be working with AMC on this, as well as the Transportation Alliance, to sort of just reframe the debate so we're not fighting against these proposals that are so onerous for counties in terms of attempts to steal transportation dollars. I've heard that the House Chair of the committee would again try to like to take your metro sales tax dollars to give to the Met Council for bus rapid transit. And we want to push against that because you guys are doing a much better job of delivering those projects that matter to your constituents than the Met Council is.
Amber,
Yes.
with that, how much has been spent on the light rail going to Eden Prairie? And do you have an opening date for that?
I believe it's now 2027, and I think it's over $3 billion. So yes, case in point, which it was astounding. I mean, I know the Senate Transportation Chair, Scott Dibble, is no fan of the Met Council, and he thinks they don't do a good job of overseeing their dollars. So I was very surprised that he went along with the deal to give the Met Council more money in light of that. So, yes, your point is well made, Commissioner.
Thank you.
But there were some other ideas that were part of the Senate transportation bill that are going to be back on the table that we want to try to fight against. And those are listed here, as I said, besides trying to raise your dollars. There were also efforts for the state to dictate the state aid design standards for local roads that we weren't so excited about. We still want counties to have a voice in that and determining what works for them. There were also efforts to take some of the constitutionally dedicated trunk highway dollars and allow them to be spent more on transit, which again, we don't think is the right thing to do considering there's so many existing needs on the current road and bridge system. So we will continue to be an advocate on your behalf and so hopefully tamp some of these things down and put us in the driver's seat to do more for you as you deliver your county transportation projects. I'd be happy to answer any other questions if you have them.
Any questions?
Nice. Well, I will turn it over to my colleague Nancy then. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amber.
for
Good
your
to
time
see you.
this morning. Nice to see you.
I knew Amber when she was very young. She's merely just young now.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'm Nancy Selesky, and I represent MICA in the area of Public Health and Human Services, and it's great to be here with you this morning. Going into the 2025 legislative session, all of the county organizations, MICA, AMC, MAXA, had the same top 3 HHS priorities, and I'm happy to say that we made progress in each of them, and you're going to be very familiar with all of them. The first is technology. The legislature did end up putting $35 million into SSIS, which along with the $10 million from last year gives us the $45 million, which we will hopefully now be able to draw down those federal funds and get going and hopefully be able to say goodbye to the green screen technology at some point. I would just say that we were hoping for this to happen more quickly than it's likely to. It looks like the RFP and is not going out until next March, so it looks like there's going to take some time here. And this is going to complicate our work on the African American Family Preservation Act, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But the money is there. We are happy to see that, and hopefully we're moving forward. The next item is Min Choices. We brought a Min Choices reform bill this year, and there were a number of things that did pass. For those folks whose situations are not changing from year to year, they have to sit through these very long reassessments each year, which is hard on the client, it's hard on your staff. For those folks, again, we can now do an abbreviated assessment or reassessment for three years in a row, and then that has to be followed by a full reassessment at that point. The client can request a full reassessment at any time if they so desire. The other thing that they are allowing us is to be able to use remote reassessments more frequently. And then verbal attestation replaces the required reassessment signatures upon the initiation of the Min Choices reassessment. They did modify assessor qualifications. A person only has to have a 2-year degree now to be able to work on Min Choices assessments. And finally, DHS is required to create a dashboard which will list or point out what the assessment completions rate is. The second item is priority admissions, direct care and treatment, another issue that's been around for a long time. A few years ago, there was the legislature created a priority admissions review panel. And this was in reaction to the 48-hour rule where a person that's sitting in your jails kind of gets bumped to the top in terms of getting access to AMRTC, the Anoka Metropolitan Regional Treatment Center. They put a pause on that 48-hour rule and wanted this priority readmissions or admissions review panel to do the work and come up with some recommendations over the last couple of years. There were a number of county folks that sat on that review panel, and there were a number of things, recommendations that came from there that the legislature did adopt this year. The first is that $20 million is being put into the AMRTC campus that will restructure or redo the Miller building on that campus. And then along with that, they put $55 million into the bonding bill that passed late on the one-day special session that we had. So that $75 million brings will generate 50 new beds at AMRTC. So we're happy to see that happen. Now, a couple of other things that did not happen relative to this I do want to mention is for the last 2 years, counties have had a reprieve related to the county cost share on those folks that are committed as mentally ill and dangerous, are waiting a bed in one state-operated facility and going to another, AMRTC to St. Peter as an example. We, for the last 2 years, did not have to pay into that fund. Unfortunately, that did sunset on July 1st, so counties are estimated to be paying $14 million in the first biennium and 18 in the second biennium. And then finally, we all know that in addition to state resources, community resources are also needed. That did not happen. So it's a work in progress, but certainly progress was made. I just want to highlight a couple of the public health priority issues. The legislature did put significant money into the emergency medical services. This is the ambulance services, which have had issues, particularly in rural Minnesota over the years. They put $16 million into the ambulance operating deficit grant program. And then they also created a rural EMS uncompensated care pool with dollars coming from both the general fund as well as the healthcare access fund. Last year, 2024, the legislature did cut public health grants to counties and tribes for prevention related to cannabis. They cut it by $10 million last year, and that's for a biennium. This year, they did backfill that by $7.2 million per biennium, so that was partially backfilled. The next item I would mention, and is one of the hugest items, is this colorful slide that's in your packet, and that deals with the cost shifts. It became very clear early on that counties would be in a defense mode on proposals that came from all three. The House is on the left starting, then the Senate, Governor, and then the gold column on the right is what the legislature came up with in the conference committee. I want to say thank you to all of you and your staff. It was all hands on deck getting that message out that these cost shifts would have significant impacts to the property taxpayers in all counties. And so what we ended up with, if you look at the bottom totals on the bottom, you'll see that the gold column reflects pretty significant reductions in those cost shifts. I do want to point out a couple of things. The disability waivers, which is that negative number, the $89 million, that is savings that the state is projecting is going to come out of a health savings, cost savings reform work group. So there's a group that's been appointed. It's a huge group. There are 30 members on it. It's filled with advocates and others. In addition, there are 6 county members on that group, and we'll talk about that as well. But that $89 million, if they're looking to this group to find savings that the state has not been able to find within their own systems. So this will be revisited in the event that doesn't happen. Did want to point that out. The next number is that 14 million and 18, again, is the MI&D cost share that we did pick up. I would mention the flat reimbursement in 28-29, that $18 million. That is something that came out. Senator Abler and others are looking at the MnChoice's reimbursement process, and they're wanting DHS to come up with a different methodology than the current one that we're using. So they are booking savings in 28-29 of $18 million. So we'll be watching that carefully as well. So in terms of what didn't happen, there had been proposals for increase into the state offender, the Minnesota sex offender program. That did not happen. There had also been a proposal that we pick up withdrawal management services. That did not happen either. Moving on to 2026, we are in the process of working on our platform with all of you and your staff. And I would say the number one thing that's risen to the top is the act. This is the African American Family Preservation Act. There were no changes made this year on that. We did talk to a number of legislators, including the authors of this from 24, saying that we're really concerned that counties aren't going to be ready for this. And can we possibly look at some sort of either a delay or let us phase into this process? There was no appetite to make changes this year because there is a work group that's been meeting, and they wanted to see what the results of that work group would be before making any changes. In terms of what that group looks at, like Otter Tail County Kurt Mortensen, Commissioner Kurt Mortensen is on the committee, Washington County Carla Bigham, and they join Angela Conley of Hennepin and Joan Lee of Polk. They are to have an interim report by January 1st of 2026. I've been following this group quite a bit, and I can tell you that it's moving really slow, and there's a lot of concern about the other 85 counties being ready. Hennepin and Ramsey are currently part of a pilot program, and we are supposed to be learning from them. And my understanding is that information is not going to be available for some time. So that January 1st, 2027 date is looming upon us, and we're going to be having conversations about that this year at the legislature. The number one thing is funding, of course, and then we're advocating for the state doing the case reviews as opposed to us, and possibly, like I said, looking at a phase-in, et cetera. So working with different legislators on that.
Before you move off that, can I ask a question? Has your team or anybody on the working group or otherwise looked into, I like that you shorten it to the act, because we hear Heather talk about it and she rattles it off very long. But has anybody looked into the potential of being discriminatory and potentially illegal? I think people rush to fund it. I think people rush to say, how do we implement it? But has anybody looked at if it's even legal? Feels a little discriminatory the way that they have it labeled.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner, not to my knowledge. With regard to the act, yesterday on the call, there were members saying that we can't call it that now either because it's the law. It's not the act. It's like, oh my gosh.
I might urge your team to look at it. And I'm not taking a position as our full county, but I know my peers in other counties have, tiptoed against it because of the language that's present. But there's been a lot of people that have asked the question. I just raise it publicly. Is it legal? Is it discriminatory? And should we even have to jump through these hoops to make something like that happen? Our team will be prepared to comply with the law. But I think that maybe there's an opportunity for an organization that has 17 members to maybe poll the members to see if it's worth taking a look at.
Thank you. I'll take that back.
Thanks.
Well, and to go a little bit further, wasn't that a big part of the big 1,400-page bill that pieces of are being found unconstitutional at the moment anyway?
Mr. Chair, that is correct. It was in that bill from last year. The next item I would mention is the LTSS Advisory Committee. This is a long-term services and supports advisory. Again, this is the group that's looking to find $90 million in the state system. We again have 6 county folks on that committee. Micah's appointments are Commissioner Barb Weckman-Brecky from Scott, Nicole Hansen, who is the Otter Tail County Administrator, AMC appointed Stearns County Commissioner Terrell Clark, and Alex Coetzee, who is the Ramsey CFO. And then MAXA has a member from both Hennepin and Pine County. So we have folks in mid-sized counties, rural, suburban, and urban counties. And again, there to find money by 28-29. The next item I would mention is federal interactions, which we're still waiting through, as you all are as well. Preliminary numbers from the department indicate that the state's going to lose $1.4 billion with a B dollars in federal health care funding over the first 4 years. You're all aware of the work requirements that are now necessary under both SNAP and Medicaid. And then the eligibility now is being moved from once a year to twice a year. So we know that this is going to have an impact on our staff. There is a group that the Senate has put together that's reviewing these changes coming from the federal government. It's being led by Senator Lindsey Port from Dakota, and I think she's part of Scott County as well. And then Carla Nelson is a Republican lead from Olmsted County. And then I did want to mention there are a couple of other things that have come up, and that is, again, this Priority Admissions Task Force. We're not sure what the recommendations are going to be, but we are going to be looking to try and get that exemption again for those folks that are MIND. We have no ability to transfer those folks from one state-operated facility to another, and we just don't think that that should be a county responsibility. And the other thing is step-down facilities. We want in our local communities. We want to see some investment there as well. And finally, we're always hearing about unfunded mandates. There's a number of them, and as you're all very much aware, so we're kind of putting together a list on that as well. Finally, I just want to also call out your staff. I work closely with Heather Goodwin, and she's always just a phone call away, very much present at MICA meetings, and want to thank you for allowing her to participate as much as she does, because she's a very valuable person in our committee.
Indeed.
Chair, I have just one more question.
Sure,
I agree. Maybe we get a bargain by not paying her by the hour.
No kidding.
We get a lot out of her. Before you started, I've had this rolling list. I think the biggest cost facing the county now and in the future, you hit on all of them. Unfunded mandates, mental health, including beds and heads. Talent pipeline is part of that. System inefficiencies, you hit on hard. And then protection for law enforcement. They're trying to do their job, but sometimes it's hard to do it because there's so many encumbrances, whether it relates to mental health or other costs. You mentioned $35 to $45 million for the modernization of SSIS, which we've been talking about forever. I think Nathan and your team presented something, was it a year ago in Shakopee, that showed these screens that we're not hiring people to manage MS-DOS. We're hiring them to help people. And it just seems so slow moving. Carla's, been an advocate in this space, so I'm surprised to hear that they're moving slow on their committee. But I'd make the plea to say the state's shifting things to the county because they know we can do better. They're shifting things to the county through COVID because they said county can get those dollars to where they need and the most closest to the need. So I'd make the appeal to say if there's $35 to $45 million floating around that doesn't have a home and there's no intention to spend it in a meaningful way, let us pilot it here. We're one of the more sizable counties in the state, 11th largest and growing, so we're big enough, but we're small enough and nimble enough. And whatever we learn, we can lend back to the larger system. If you offer it to the Ramseys and the Hennepins in the world, they're just too bureaucratic to make the money work. And so I think a big chunk of that money would be best spent with Heather, with our team, to pilot things like what would it look like to have a passport, if you will, of everybody that we serve, to have all their information in one place, and then it feeds like an octopus all these other systems, right? Maybe that's a good first step. So anyway, my appeal is I think we're well positioned with our current team and leadership and our know-how and our proof of what we've been able to do to use those dollars effectively if there's a window to advocate for that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, those dollars have been appropriated to DHS, and I know that they're working on this, but again, the last document I saw was, I think, March before the RFP goes out. So it's going to take some time, clearly, but thank you.
I also on the modernization, and thank you, Commissioner Uterman, for your comments. It would be remiss for us to not mention that our very own Representative Jim Nash really helped get that. The money that we did get, and so grateful for that. I also know that sometimes legislatures and politicians in general think, okay, that's enough money, it's done. And we've got a ways to go. But I did want to shout out to Representative Nash and the bipartisan work that went into getting that money. So thank you for that. Also, part of the reason that system is broken is because our overall system and process is so complicated. And so that's a piece of it as well, is how do we streamline that system. And you are right about our very own Director Goodwin, and I'm grateful that we have her, and we call her a part of Carver County, and I'm looking forward to partnering with her in the future on some of these pieces and making sure we continue the good work.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner, yes, I thank you for calling out Representative Nash. He was very much part of it, and as you indicated, it was very bipartisan. It's not a partisan issue. We all want to help people, and in the end, it was a good piece of work.
Yes.
Thank you.
But work not done.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chair and members of the board. My name is Emilio Lamba. I am a public safety and corrections policy analyst for the Association of Minnesota Counties, and in partnership with Micah as an informational resource in this space. So, looking back to last session, I like to frame it as maybe a bit of a less consequential year for public safety and corrections, looking at the full picture with the proposed cost shifts and cuts in other spaces. We actually did have a positive target of around 107 million for the committee combined with judiciary to spend. However, it was a bit of a fallacy. That money was set aside for our state agencies, the Department of Public Safety, as well as the Department of Corrections, which both had pretty extensive operating deficiencies and operating adjustment requests, which left really little money for other, one-time asks or other on-time going asks. Both agencies had attributed that to finally getting up to full complement for staffing, more specifically on the DOC side. That they finally had gotten up to full staffing with their labor contract settlements from the previous years, and that gap was never fully funded by the state. And in order to continue operations, they were needing some additional funding, which I think we all saw at the 11th hour with the closure of the Stillwater prison and that decommissioning to begin immediately. So there was some deals and workarounds to ensure that the public safety space was shored up for our state agencies, but that left our counties with very little. We pushed both in conjunction with MICA and AMC for full funding of our community supervision formula. As many of you are familiar, we received $143 million back in 2023. That was still about, at the time, $13 million short. That number has now been adjusted as years have changed and our probation population has adjusted. And so, unfortunately, since we were unable to, given the budgetary constraints, get full funding in this last session, we did pivot a little bit. We were able to achieve a 2-year delay in the collection of supervision fees for counties, which was part of an agreement when the law originally passed that counties would do away with those supervision fees and we would be fully funded. We pressed really hard on them and said, hey, we are 2 years past being fully funded and we are not there yet. We at least need some level of a reprieve. So we pushed really hard and pivoted to ensure that our counties were still able to have that revenue tool in their pocket. We still are looking forward into the future to see if there's a possibility for those supervision fees, that removal of the supervision fees, to potentially be repealed. The state budget picture isn't looking amazing just yet, and so I do think we have some leverage there. Additionally, we were also able to institute a 3-year averaging into our community supervision formula. This was really critical because we do expect that trends will continue downward for our probation population. This is due in part to a lot of things at the legislature that they've done in recent years, 5-year caps on many probation sentences, among many other things that are going to likely continue to taper off until we finally balance out at a level that we're unsure of as of this point. But just from last year to this year, we had seen our probation population decrease, which subtracted about $3 million from what we were needing to be full funded. So we're looking forward to keeping that 3-year average in there to just ensure that any stability in budgeting is a little bit more predictable, that we're smoothing out the peaks and the valleys for our counties to be able to adjust to a little bit better. Looking forward into the future here, what are some things that did pass that we're looking at? The Larry Hill Medical Reform Act had passed last year in the omnibus bill. You guys may be familiar with it. There's a provision in there that relates to medication administration within our jails. The Minnesota Sheriff's Association has been leading on this. They put forward a lawsuit with many other plaintiffs against the Department of Corrections in the state due to this law. The challenge with this law was that medical providers within your facilities were needing to contact the original prescriber of a medication in order to get any adjustments made. And now that's a bit challenging when you have someone right in front of you looking at their current medical state and you being unable as a licensed medical provider in the jails to make that real-time decision. And if it's a weekend, maybe some difficult timing, you're not able to get a hold of them. As of yesterday, I was told that a memo went out from DOC inspection that said that they had a different interpretation of the law, and that's what they were going to go forward with, that you just have to make a good faith effort to contact the original prescriber, which could be 2 voicemails. That I'm still verifying a little bit. I know in some areas yesterday, some counties yesterday, they said that their providers were no longer looking to pull out of their agreements, but it still is just a difficult situation and one that we would like some changes made on in this upcoming session. That in tandem, there's, the DOC rulemaking authority with their delegated authority from the legislature, have a bunch of proposals we're keeping our eyes on. In past, just earlier this year, there were proposals to separate the duties of a dispatcher and a jailer, that they could not be combined into one. Now, that was difficult for a lot of our counties that don't have the resources to split that. That essentially would double staff in some spaces. So we pushed back on that a lot, and we were able to get them to back down on that. So we're keeping our eyes out for any proposals that might make impacts of that sort. One thing that did pass in 2024, so 2 sessions ago, was the raising of the age delinquency from 10 to 13, meaning that individuals or children that are 10, 11, and 12 found to be delinquent would now be in the child protection space. There was no work group or anything put forward for this. This is a bucket of kids that have been long receiving services in our criminal justice space for diversionary services and many good things that have proven to be good outcomes. But we want to ensure that as they're shifted over into this child protection space and they're being removed from these longstanding services, that child protection space is built out and well resourced in order for these kids to be served well. So the Juvenile Justice Advisory Committee Council had put together recommendations as a work group over the last year, essentially asking for a 1 to 2 year kick out for us to ensure that we are well resourced and well built out for this bucket of kids that are now shifting over to the DCYF space. Other things that also are moving, the Community Supervision Advisory Council has deliverables that are coming due here. That was in part of that 2023 legislation that saw our increase in funding for our community supervision formula. The CSAC, as it's coined, is looking at many different things as far as supervision across the state, just such as statewide supervision standards, amongst many other things. I believe there's 8 deliverables, and they're coming due here. We just want to be really hard on any of these deliverables that transform and change our practices and become best practices as they're being vetted right now by county staff and county directors. Don't have, or as we anticipate them to have increased capacity for our counties, that we request that there is resourcing and funding that comes along with it. We just want to be sure to call that out. Additionally, 2 last things, kind of more in the emergency response space. There's been discussions at the Capitol of utilizing a 911 fee to help solve the armor system funding issue that our state has been facing for many years now. Our systems and technologies are becoming more and more outdated. It's an archaic system. It's something that needs dire need of updating, and that interoperability is really critical for our emergency response individuals across the state to be able to communicate with each other. So they're looking at maybe using the current 911 fee as an increase or an additional fee to help offset that. There's also been discussions from folks on the DFL of using that funding for crime victim services. I think we would like that to be a little bit more built out as an emergency response system, all the way from when someone picks up the phone to with their PSAPs, all the way out to when we finally get folks out there. If it could be focused more in that 911 emergency response space for that funding to be dedicated to, that would likely be a little bit more beneficial and more in line with its intent. And then lastly, there was a push last year to get our emergency management positions that are mandated under Minnesota State Statute Chapter 12 that mandates every political subdivision have a local emergency management director. However, the state has never dedicated funding to that. In many counties, and maybe even in Carver County, you guys have maybe a sheriff or deputy that is an emergency manager. Maybe you have an emergency manager that also does many other tasks such as planning and zoning. I've met with folks across the state. It's really a mixed bag, but I think I could count on my hand the amount of emergency managers that are full-time. And these are the people that ensure that we're prepared for disasters, and we're not just talking natural disasters such as floods or tornadoes. We're also talking terrorism, cybersecurity strikes. These are the sorts of things that your emergency managers do and help us get prepared and mitigate. And then lastly, there's been a large push for weather radar gaps. Minnesota has a significant amount of weather radar gaps. We only have 3 active radars that service Minnesota, and it's more kind of in the central, center, west, and north area that there is little to no coverage under 10,000 feet. This is a significant challenge because, you know, snow squalls and rainstorm, severe weather can come at a moment's notice. If you guys have ever left your house and, you know, it said it was supposed to be bright and sunny and then it was storming that day, that is due in part because there's not any coverage for in those areas of Minnesota. It does not read under 10,000 feet for any storm systems. And so there's been a long push for that just because of the impacts it has not only agriculture, but also public safety. And so there's a big push going right there, and be happy to get you any information. There's a lot of county folks that have been pushing that more in the rural areas, but those are the conversations that are being had. Happy to answer any questions.
Emilio, right?
Yes.
A couple of weeks ago in this room, we had a group of people who had maybe understood that the sheriff's department here was going to maybe contract with ICE to use some of our jail space, which isn't something that is currently occurring. I'm sad to say they use some old tropes about the Holocaust and comparing our law enforcement to probable Nazis, et cetera, the same old silly stuff. Is this something that the organization is going to keep an eye on at the Capitol? I know it was a headline in the Star Tribune about more and more counties being available, having jails available, and so I don't think it's a question as much as let's keep an eye on where that is. I support all of our law enforcement to handle our issues, and I think our sheriff does a good job, and our deputies do a good job. And but seeing what's happening around the nation, I think we better keep an eye on where this is going. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to give a big shout out to our Sheriff's Association. They do fantastic work. Our sheriffs across the state ensure public safety in just the best quality possible. So, and that is something that we've been tracking. And I know that the Sheriff's Association, obviously counties are able to make their own decisions based on, what they choose to do with their jails and administering their public safety. But our Sheriff's Association, nonetheless, is of the highest quality of work.
Anybody else? Thank you.
And I'll pass it over to my colleague, Rachel.
The best for last, Rachel?
Well, Nathan goes after me, so yes, best for last. All right. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is Rachel Sosnochik, and I am Micah's environmental liaison at the Capitol. So this is my second session working with Micah. And so just want to share a little bit of an update on some of the things that I've been monitoring over the interim, just updates on where things ended with the 2025 session and what we're thinking about as we head into 2026. So similar to Emilio's update, I would say in the environment space more broadly, it was more or less maintaining status quo, not a lot of significant funding changes, not a lot of major policy changes, in part, I think, because of the divided government and the chair matchups that we had, co-chair matchups, I should say, and maybe disagreements on priorities in the environment space. But still a lot of good work that can happen and did happen. So over the interim and just throughout 2025, there have been a few different relevant working groups, advisory boards that we've been monitoring. You might recall in 2024, Micah and counties more broadly were really strong advocates in favor of passing the Packaging Waste and Cost Reduction Act, which establishes a product stewardship approach to dealing with packaging and paper waste. And so that there's been an advisory board that's been set up to oversee the implementation of that new program that's going to play out over the next several years. So it's not, something where we're going to see changes overnight, but very focused on making sure that implementation goes well, mostly so that we ultimately see the cost savings for counties who are, bearing the burden of paying for managing solid waste right now. But also I think that, successful implementation will really set the stage for taking similar approaches for other types of waste items. And so that includes batteries and electronics waste. So we were also really involved during the 2025 session in advocating for a batteries and e-waste product stewardship legislation, which did not ultimately pass, but the work on that continues. There have been stakeholder meetings convened over the interim and working on updated language. So hopefully we can get to a better place, get more stakeholders all on the same page and bring something back in 2026. There's a critical materials recovery advisory working group as well that's thinking about those same types of questions around, batteries and electronics and how do we better set up, a more robust recycling system so that we can get those materials that we know we can reuse in other ways. And so there will be some recommendations coming out of that working group as we head to the end of the year that I think will also inform that conversation around batteries and e-waste in 2026. Generally with our environment agenda, solid waste issues are, the guidance that I have received from our board, from county administrators and from the environment committee members are that solid waste issues are number one, 2, 3, 4, 5, top priority for counties. And I think especially as we head towards the 2030 deadline for meeting the state mandated recycling goals. And obviously, right, counties are are doing really great work to meet those recycling goals, but there are important policy and funding changes that could help support your great work. And so that will continue to be a focus for us in 2026. That conversation plays out across a number of different committees. For 2026, more of a policy and bonding year. So I expect that's where we'll be focusing more of my time at the Capitol. So in the bonding committee, the capital assistance program, CAP funding, I think that's been a topic of conversation. The MPCA has put forward, there's about $55 million in CAP project funding needed across the state. So that's sort of our benchmark. I don't expect that full amount will make it into the governor's proposed bonding bill, but that's, when we're having conversations with legislators, we want to get as close to that number as possible. Also thinking about the MPCA also put forward pretty robust, almost $120 million request around construction and demolition landfills. So they have proposed, they being MPCA has proposed new rules and regulations around C&D landfills. Back in 2018, actually, is when they started this process. There were some study results that showed that even C&D landfills were still having a negative effect on groundwater. And so wanting to have these new regulations in order to protect the groundwater, but obviously that comes with a cost for folks who are operating landfills and closed landfills as well. So a lot of money at play when it comes to solid waste in the bonding space for 2026. Also thinking about the tax committee, we, in my 2 years at MICA, and I think this will continue, a conversation around SCORE and trying to redirect all of the solid waste management tax that's collected to counties through SCORE grants to help support their recycling activities. There's not a lot of money available at the state level, and so it's a tough conversation just in terms of there being funds. But it's an important one to have. It's one where I think legislators across parties understand in theory why we're asking for this, and they agree that is the right approach. But it's tough when the money is not there. But I think we want to continue to make that a priority for legislators because at some point, hopefully there will be funds available, and so we want folks to be ready to help champion that issue for counties. Another thing that we're closely tracking over the interim and expect to be an issue in 2026 is the Public Utilities Commission is currently considering a docket around the state's carbon-free standard and whether or not burning solid waste and wood waste counts as carbon-free. Of course, burning that waste does emit carbon, but when the most likely alternative for managing that waste is putting it in a landfill and the methane emissions that come with that, counties would argue and have argued, and many folks submitted public comments to the effect that burning it is ultimately a better option when we think about greenhouse gas emissions. So the public comment period closed a couple weeks ago on that docket. Have not yet seen it on an official agenda yet, but there is expected to be a ruling by the end of the year, and I think either way they rule, whether it's allowing burning of waste or not, I think there's going to be a response at the legislature. I think counties would be interested in having that discussion at the legislature if they rule against it. But there are a lot of environmental groups, environmental advocates who will probably be pretty upset if they rule the way that we would like them to, and so there might be some defense needed. So just tracking that pretty closely to see what is the most strategic response. And then the last thing I'll say is just around the Clean Water Fund, and really just in 2025, the only significant spending on environment issues was just through the Clean Water Fund, over $300 million over the next biennium. In 2024, we did see a small supplemental clean water bill, so I think we'll just be watching the Legacy Committee and what, if anything, is able to come out of that. And in general, we've been aligned with the Clean Water Council's recommendations. And we have a couple of our MICA board members that serve on the council, so they've been pretty good on where we stand on our platform. So that is it for me, unless folks have any questions or comments.
Well, the 2030 goal for recycling is 75%, correct?
Yes.
We're not at 50. maybe again, not a question, but state statute is a lousy place to put a goal. And because it lacks anything. It's the, you can wish in this hand and do whatever you want in this hand. And the legislature ought to just start thinking about banning. I don't know if there's any repercussions if we don't. We're going to fine ourselves because we didn't reach it. The band of pure recyclables is very small, just in the plastics realm. Although people think you can recycle all plastics the same. So I don't know how long the Star Tribune is going to be printing the newspaper in Iowa, of all places, but the Atlanta Constitution is no longer have a printed, they're not going to have a printed. Well, that'll reduce recycling. The recycling trucks driving around with loads of newsprint that maybe are going to be there, not less and less people subscribe, but 75% is not obtainable. And I'm not sure if you were alluding to the idea that the SCORE fund ought to be beefed up with an increased, I mean, are we still at 9.75% on our waste bills residentially? I mean, that's where the money comes from, right? So are we suggesting we want higher taxes on our waste?
So thank you for that. So the conversation around SCORE really centers on the fact that there is around, it's 27% that is deposited of those tax collections that are deposited into the general fund, which is about $33 million a year. And so we don't know, like that can be used for whatever purpose, right? And so counties have long argued that all of those solid waste management tax collections should be given directly back to counties to fund their activities to try to move waste up that waste hierarchy. And so do more things like recycling and household hazardous waste collection and consumer education, I think, is a really good point too as well. Just like how do you, getting that recycling rate to 75% is somewhat, right, on counties, but it's so much of that too is about a larger kind of cultural shift and education of folks to know how they can be better managing their waste. And so you can't make that kind of shift happen overnight. And so we are not talking about increasing tax rates on waste. It's more about the money that's already being collected should be given back to counties so that they can do the good work.
I agree.
Great.
And the commercial tax is 17%, just for FYI. But if you are in say a county like Washington, who is fully in the waste business, that tax is 56 to 72% somewhere on a commercial account. So if you're a little business, you got a $100 trash bill a month, it's $170 with the government participation. That's pretty confiscatory. So it seems like we do have enough money, at least over there. But anyway, seeing no more.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'll wrap us up here. I just wanted to check in on pensions really quickly and let you all know. Last year, probation officers were seeking an increased pension benefit through increasing their employee contributions. There's a working group, nothing passed. And probation officers and 911 telecommunicators are now seeking increased employer contributions as well. We understand these are difficult, stressful jobs, but we're always just sensitive to the fact that increased employer contributions just ends up on the tax levy. So those conversations are ongoing. That group's meeting, I think, in another 2 weeks. Can keep you posted on that moving forward. So just kind of wanted to provide a big picture of the budget at this moment in time. My caveat is literally every single one of these numbers is going to change in early December with the new economic forecast. But the highlights here, I would just, so if you look at the surplus after carry forward, covers and balance for 26-27. So that's just a really fancy way of saying, here's how much money the state has left after the 2025 session. on a one-time basis. There's basically a $1.9 billion cushion that the state has at this moment. But if you look at the first and second rows there, your projected revenues, projected spending, spending is about $2 billion over revenues for each of the next 2 biennia. So they took a number of steps to reduce the long-term structural budget issues, but those long-term structural budget issues are all still there, right? And that 1.9 billion, like theoretically, in 28, you could cover most of the deficit in 28, 29, but not all of it. So there's a little bit of a cushion, but the budget issues that the state's facing not going away, though less severe than they appeared in February. The other thing I would note here, and we're talking about this a little bit before the meeting, is that the state does still have a nearly $3.2 billion budget reserve. And that there have been some revenue monthly forecasts come out recently. Some are up, some are down. There's really no big takeaway from them, I would say, at the state level. There's a number of special elections happening right now. The House is at 67. The Senate's at 33-32. There's potentially cascading special elections depending on the outcome of Senate special in Woodbury and a couple mayoral races. In the Twin Cities, we had Zach Stevenson from Anoka County recently got elected as leader of the House DFL caucus. We're also engaging in kind of this ongoing Senate committee in response to the federal bill. They're trying to basically talk about, okay, what is that? What happened? We had a hearing last week where Commissioner Lori Halverson from Dakota County talked about some of the cost shifts that are onto counties as a result of that bill. Obviously, state legislature doesn't have jurisdiction over what happens federally, but we do think it's relevant for just the county budget pictures and talking about it from that perspective. Governor's talking about calling a special session. It's really no way of knowing how or when or if that will happen. And then the legislature returns on February 17th. And between now and then, we're going to be going through our own policy process, always seeking board input, and we'll be hopefully approving that in December. So happy to stand for any questions.
It's a lot. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Lynch.
I don't necessarily have a question. I'd just like to say that was a wonderful, wonderful update, and you surrounded yourself with some really good people, and I'm very happy that we are members of MICA.
All right.
Yes, good work. Thank you.
Our attorney would like to.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, as you know, the Minnesota County Attorneys Association is very active as well in our efforts at the legislature and our lobbying efforts. We hired Nancy Haas as our lobbyist, and she's with Paul Haas, who also works with the county. We work in coordination with the Sheriff's Association, chiefs of police, and others to ensure that, we're getting consistent laws, and we've played a lot of defense lately. So that's really unfortunate. And so just trying to educate takes a lot of effort about what we actually do on a day-to-day basis, and try to do our best to ensure that we don't have bad laws with bad outcomes. So, it's been a struggle the last couple of years, I can say, with the County Attorneys Association, and we'll continue fighting for that and working together, with our partners to make sure that, our needs are being met. And we've addressed all these issues and have committees from the 48-hour rule to Health and Human Services to law enforcement. So we're really active, and I serve on the board as well, and we had our board meeting last week and talked about our priorities that are coming up as well.
Past president, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Micah. We appreciate it. Fahey and Workman are on that committee, right?
Correct.
The very best.
Simply the
I'll speak for Fahey.
Does it help having a former legislature on that committee, or hurt?
good question.
Does it help having a former legislature on that committee, or hurt?
That's kind of you.
All right, we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so
friends.
much.
All right, County Administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are now entering day 7 of the federal shutdown. I just want to see if you had any questions on that. I sent a brief email to you the day before that occurred, stating that there were relatively minimal impacts that we foresaw. Some cash flow concerns with SNAP in particular, probably around, according to Heather, 40,000 a month starting in, I think, November. That could add up over time, but we can manage that. Dave has also said, Dave Frischman has also said, the transportation area, we're keeping an eye on cash flow there, federal reimbursement, but we also feel we could manage that too. So for us, minimal. Obviously, there's other impacts more directly related to their services. Just wanted to touch on that since it's making headline every day with, looks like at least no end in sight right now, unfortunately. That's it.
Okay, then I promised I would bring up to the board at this point our possible slight decorating of the county boardroom with some words above our dais here. I think I've spoken to all of you about that, but I'd love to get a re-input on that. I'm certainly in favor of it. I didn't want this to be a one or a two person project. I wanted it to be the county board project. And so I'm looking for some input. Commissioner Uterman?
I'm in support.
Mr. Chair, could you clarify what exact the
No.
wording?
Oh. Sister county of ours, Anoka County, they did it a little bit more serendipitously. They put the words that's found on all of our Money in God We Trust up above their dais. And it's been suggested that maybe we do the same. And I
Mr.
don't,
Chair, you're thinking of up on the
right,
edge there.
On the circular, yes.
Yeah, all right.
right, not on the ceiling stuff.
Very much in support, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Commissioner Fahey,
I am in support.
Commissioner Anderson.
It's on our money, it's in our pledge. I'm in support.
All right.
Okay, we'll mock something up and run it by the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Lynch.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Commissioner Lynch has moved and Commissioner Uterman has seconded. The idea that we adjourn this regular session, any discussion?
Only that to note that we're going to go into a work session.
That we're going to go into a work session and we have a very patient person waiting out there. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. And we are going to take a brief recess.
Brief.